Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Just how good is Anthony Joshua's chin? It's a good question. Can he take Joseph Parker's best punches? Can he avoid being knocked out? Some would have you believe that Joshua's chin is just a weakness waiting to be exploited, while others, they are adamant that the chin concerns are massively overblown. So let's go through some of the statements and available evidence. Let's work through this. In the context of this upcoming fight between Joshua and Parker on March 31st, how good or otherwise Joshua's whiskers are, it's been a massive talking point. It's been specifically raised numerous times by Parker, his promoter David Higgins, and trainer Kevin Barry. And here's an example from David Higgins.
Joshua's been dropped numerous times. Dropped as an amateur, dropped in sparring, dropped in the ring. It's the worst kept secret in British boxing. No one really talks about it much. It's like the story of the Emperor's new clothes. And we wonder whether that's because Sky Sport UK, Eddie Hearn and Joshua are powerful and maybe the media are scared to talk about it. But, why not discuss this? It's a genuine weakness and it's backed by facts.
And you may remember David Higgins and his team also released a video during that same November 2017 news conference, which they'd hyped up in a news advisory beforehand as rare footage of Anthony Joshua getting dropped. But in reality, it was a rehash of some of the known times Joshua had been hurt or some rumours from sparring. And the 6 instances shown, you might remember they were punctuated with the sound of breaking glass. How could we forget? The tirade of glass jaw comments, it continued right up until the first presser in January to announce the fight. And David Higgins, he appeared at that point reluctant to keep up the same rhetoric.
You also said he has a glass chin. We're going to break his glass chin. Don't tell me, tell him he's here.
Okay, so look, I'll give you a small concession. He's mentally tougher than most people, but he's mentally weaker than Joseph Parker. And in terms of chin, got a better chin than me he has, but not as good as Joseph Parker, so there's a concession.
The fact is, when it comes down to it, you don't really believe. Because I've heard you all saying, someone's getting knocked out in this fight. It's either me or him. That's not the same feeling on this side of the table. This is 100% same as what we do every time. Win, knockout. It's not we might get knocked out, we might get hurt. We don't. We win this fight. So you can't say one thing and then when you get here say another. I appreciate you trying to build the fight, but do you truly believe you're going to win? The Team Parker truly believe they're going to win the fight. Not someone might get knocked out. Do you
honestly,
truly believe?
I believe it's the destiny of Joseph Parker to win the fight and make history.
The answer's no.
But interestingly though, Anthony Joshua, he did feel that he needed to address those glass jaw comments directly.
And when you want to talk about facts, the 3 times that I have been hurt or dropped was in the European Championships when McCracken knows I was actually banned from the GB team because I was still getting in trouble. So I went back to Watford, I stopped boxing, and 2 weeks before that European Championship, I was called up to represent the country. I was very unfit, I didn't get dropped, I got stopped. When your tank is empty, it's hard to perform. The second time was with David Price. I'd come out of a police cell. The day I went up to training, I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but David Price is a puncher and lack of experience. And then with Klitschko, and all them times what it taught me, it would take more than a human to stop me from where I'm destined to be. And that's why I learned not to walk with sight, because when you're fatigued, you don't know where you are, I walk with faith in this journey. So in terms of using it as a PR stunt, the rumors that you have heard, they're fake news. Hand on my heart. So PR, whatever you want to use it for, is between you and your camp. But in terms of facts, I speak on those 3 times. And as I said, what I have learned in those times of adversity and going through storm is that it will take more than any human to stop me on this journey.
And on those sparring rumours that Anthony Joshua denies, I find it interesting that neither Daniel Dubois or Lawrence Okoli have actually disputed Joshua's version of events. That in itself, it would seem to lend some credibility to what Anthony Joshua is saying there. So apart from the time that Anthony Joshua was stopped as an amateur by Mihai Nistor and in sparring by David Price, we've only got 2 instances in his professional career of Joshua being hurt. And the first, it was against Dillian Whyte in 2015. And that was when Whyte landed a left hook in the second round, visibly stunning Joshua. It took him maybe 10-15 seconds to recover. I would have liked to have shown you some of that footage, but there are restraints around being able to show such fight footage. You end up getting hit with copyright and such, and I've recently found out that that can take a long time to resolve on appeal, even if you are successful. But on that front, I do hope to bring you a video next week. It's called Anthony Joshua, The Story So Far. I did it a month ago, but I've had to get through a series of appeals. So I've only got 2 left to resolve. There's 1 week left, and we'll see how that goes. But the second occasion, it was Vladimir Klitschko. A thunderous right hand delivered from Dr. Steelhammer. It found its mark on Joshua's left temple. On that occasion, Joshua, he fell to the canvas. He was clearly hurt, and it took him several rounds to recover. You know, what was it, 7, 8, 9, and sort of he started to look a lot better in the 10th, and then in the 11th, as we know, he finished the show. But do those 2 instances, along with the other 2 times that Joshua has either been dropped or stopped, does that really mean that he's chinning? In terms of the amateur stoppage, I'm not really reading a lot into it. It was a long time ago, and like a lot of other guys that are very top boxers, they'll take L's in the amateurs, but you know, on the way up as they're learning their craft. They are raw and learning after all. And Joshua, he didn't look great in that fight, and you can still find the footage on YouTube. But in saying that, the ref did appear very eager to jump in and end it. He probably could have continued. Who knows how it would have turned out. In terms of David Price and that knockdown in sparring. So Price, he is definitely a noted puncher. He's got a very big right hand on him. So in a sense, I'm not surprised that Anthony Joshua was hurt by him in sparring, especially given that the spar occurred in 2011. Joshua was still coming up. He was an amateur still. But the Vladimir Klitschko one, that massive temple shot from a noted puncher, it probably would have floored most guys in the division. It really was a Dr. Steelhammer special, and easily the hardest punch that Joshua has taken up until this point in his career. He probably actually did well to get up, and that was a measure of his fortitude, recovery powers, and will to continue and to keep going. And we saw, as I mentioned earlier, it took him some time to recover. But the Dillian Whyte left hook to the jaw, for me, it's the most interesting of the lot of the times that he's been hurt. It was a punch that Joshua did not see coming. And while it was a good punch, it wasn't exactly a massive bomb. It wasn't the hardest punch ever. I mean, sure, Whyte, like any other heavyweight, he's got some power, but he's not noted as one of the big bangers in the heavyweight division. And on watching that punch a number of times, I think, yeah, it was a good punch, but it wasn't like it was an absolute, wow, that should have knocked him out sort of punch. But in some ways, and this is like the Eric Molina punch that left Deontay Wilder doing a funny little chicken dance a couple of years ago, the Dillian Whyte punch, in some ways, it's acted as a touch point for people to say that Joshua is chinny. Even though that he got up from the Klitschko knockdown, and this is in 2017, and bear in mind the Whyte fight was in 2015, he can't completely escape the grasp of that Whyte left hook. For whatever reason, it's left some lingering doubts among fans. Whether that's fair or not, that's over to you to decide. But I would note he recovered relatively quickly in that instance. It was a good punch. He was stunned, but he did recover. And I would also note that a similar punch to that left hook, it also found a home in Joshua's 6th fight against Matt Legg. So Legg, he came out swinging, he was quite aggressive early on, and he managed to clip and connect with a left hook to Joshua. It was a decent shot, and Joshua took it well. It was very similar in some respects to the Whyte shot. Although the caveat here with that punch from Legg is Legg's not really a noted puncher. So how tested Joshua's chin was, it's debatable, but he did take it well. But the Klitschko fight, for me, it was an indication that Joshua, he can take a punch. A heavy punch, and he can still get back up. And just because he was knocked down, I don't automatically think that that makes, him chinny or that he has a weak chin. Plenty of guys over the years with good chins and even great chins, they've been put to the canvas at some point in their careers from a good shot or something they didn't see coming. And that includes many legends. So no, for me, I don't believe that Joshua has a glass jaw. I do think that that narrative, it's been slightly overblown. And for this fight, it was used as a decent tactic to try get under Anthony Joshua's skin. And in a way, it worked because Joshua felt that he had to explain the times that he'd been hurt or dropped and try to dispel the sparring rumours. And there's an old saying, when you're explaining, you're losing. And in my view, Joshua, he didn't need to do all that explaining. He didn't need to get into it. It didn't dignify a response. So clearly, there had been a bit of a hit to his pride on that one because he wanted to make a few things clear. So for me, if he can take Vladimir Klitschko's power, get up from a heavy shot, his chin, it's got to be decent to some degree. But I guess the question it then becomes, can Joseph Parker hurt Anthony Joshua? Can he land something clean and send Joshua to the canvas? I know there's very divergent views on this subject, with some fans, be adamant Parker, he's got enough power to get the job done, and especially if he's back down at a lower weight, which is generally seen to be his best weight. While Joshua fans will no doubt be scoffing at the suggestion that Parker will actually be able to knock him out, and they'll bring up the fact that Parker has been unable to knock out his last 3 opponents. So these are all good points, all good to throw into the melting pot here. I guess a counter to that is styles make fights. And, other well-worn lines like, it's heavyweight boxing, anything can happen in one punch. Plenty of well-worn lines like that. But they're well-worn because it's heavyweight boxing, anything can and does happen. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if Joseph Parker can knock Anthony Joshua out. I don't know if Anthony Joshua can take Joseph Parker's best. In the end, we're going to have to wait till March 31st to actually really know. And I think either way, it's going to tell us a bit more about Joseph Parker's power and maybe a bit more about Anthony Joshua's chin. But when I think about the whole scenario, I do think back to that shot that Dillian Whyte landed, and I think, well, maybe it's possible. I mean, we have seen many a stoppage from Parker through an accumulation of punches. He's not necessarily a very concussive puncher in the sense that he's knocking guys out with one shot. Surely he's had some of those knockouts in the past, but that was against lower level journeymen. Some of the ones coming up, it was generally, half a dozen or more sort of shots he would land a flurry and finish a guy off. And we've seen Joshua do that as well. And should Joshua get hurt by Parker, I think Parker would fancy his chances of finishing him off. But will he get that chance? Joshua, he's got underrated defense. He's hard to hit clean a lot of the time, and he's carrying all the size and reach advantage into this fight. There's literally 1,000 scenarios that could play out, and I'm sure they've been planning for them all. But ultimately, there's going to be some chin checking, and this goes for both, and I've previously done a video on Parker's jaw. There's going to be some chin checking, and we will certainly find out. What's your take on Joshua's chin? Can he withstand Parker's power? Does he have the punch resistance to get through, get his own work away, and come away with the win? What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.